I try not to abuse everyone with UFO segments. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes. So let me try and set this up for you. Over the last year or so, there's been a pretty significant move within Congress. Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand have been kind of at the forefront of this. Rubio is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was one of the initial people who pushed for transparency within the intel community around UFOs. Now, per what I've heard, he and many others have been very frustrated in terms of the intel community and their forthcomingness on some of the intelligence that lies within. Obviously, they had that landmark report, which came out about a year ago, which talked about several phenomena which were observed, in which they had ruled out the explanation terrestrial. Okay, I should say this. They had ruled out, a weather balloon or wind, based upon wind patterns, that it was something that was completely unexplained by modern phenomena. Since then, the NDAA actually made it so that the US military and the Pentagon was required to set up an actual unit inside of the military in order to study the phenomena. Their job is to compile reports and to interview subjects and others, consolidate all of the information, and then turn it over to Congress. Now, Congress has been very upset over the last 6 months or so, saying that the Pentagon and the military are dragging their feet. There's a culture of intimidation inside of the Pentagon, that there is a long-standing effort to basically continue the cover-ups that have been happening since the 1970s, in which it was a basic decision that we're going to shut down all of the actual interest in that phenomena. That is why the hearing today, which is the first on UFOs since 1970, is an extraordinarily significant event. And the behind the scenes jockeying on this is just maddening. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is from Politico. I can't even believe this headline, Krystal. A skull and bones type vibe. Sky agencies grapple with how much to share at the UFO hearing. Oh, I have an idea. Whatever you're legally required to. What they actually point here is that Pentagon officials are under increasing pressure to carry out Congress's mandate to establish a permanent effort to coordinate research into the reports of highly advanced aircraft of unknown origin intruding into protected airspace. The law requires regular classified and public reports to oversight committees on new incidents involving UAPs or unidentified aerial phenomena, including previous information or investigations. But there is a tug of war amongst competing factions inside the national security bureaucracy that will make it difficult for Congress to compel military branches, spy agencies, national laboratories, and others to come clean given long-standing secrecy and stigma surrounding the issue. And what they point to and quote are several anonymous defense officials who are saying that inside, the culture of secrecy remains and permeates. And I'll just say this. I was generally of the belief that if there was a crazy world-changing conspiracy, that it would come out. I was like, I don't think they could keep it secret for that long. But at the same time, we had all those crazy plots to assassinate Castro, Gulf of Tonkin,
right?
John F. Kennedy files remains up in the air.
Yeah.
You watch Oliver Stone's documentary, you can come away with your own takeaway of what exactly happened that day in terms of the establishment of a conspiracy. And the more that I learn about this subject and see how the Pentagon has used long-standing tactics that we saw the CIA use whenever it came to the torture program, destroying documents, obfuscating, even hacking Congress itself, that we've seen several 9/11 commission cover up. The Saudi thing doesn't get declassified till 20 years later. I've realized I'm detecting the same pattern in the way that the actual insiders inside the Pentagon are making sure that they cover up as much of this as possible. Now, per people I've spoken to, they expect there to be some sparks that fly in the hearing today. I don't really know what that means in terms of the observation, at least around the type of phenomena. I personally think the most interesting thing will be more revelations about the data. You guys will remember in that report, they talked about several instances, specific number of instances in which they ruled out actual other ones. Also, there remains, according to people who know, Christopher Mellon, who was himself an Undersecretary of Defense, that there is a photo and videos that reside within the Pentagon, within the CIA on the classified system, which would blow everybody's mind. One of them that he describes, there are two pilots that are going side by side and that they had something that flew in between them. And it's actually a video which catches a glimpse of that and of them just absolutely freaking out.
Whoa.
Well, yeah, I know. I need to see that video, okay? And a lot of the sketches and things that have come out from these government documents. So that's just my way of setting up. It is a big day. I mean, the first one since 1970.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating.
I mean,
I'm curious what you think about the conspiracy aspect of it.
Listen, I don't put anything past these people. I think your point about JFK is a really good one. Like, this is true deep state stuff because they were under a congressional mandate to release all of these documents that had been classified regarding Kennedy's assassination, and they just haven't done it.
Yeah. It's been since 92.
I mean, it just happened that, Biden put out another thing. So Trump pushed it off. He made some excuse. Biden pushed it off. So, it's because of coronavirus. We can't do it. It's like, Jesus Christ, like, the man has been dead for a long time now. Can we get some actual transparency about what the government knows about what happened on that day? I think the Saudi connection on 9/11 is also really important, very clear there was a cover up to avoid the American people really understanding the direct connect between the Saudi government and the plot and the hijackers. So yeah, I mean, they have this quote here from an official who says, they fetishize their secret society. It's kind of a skull and bones type vibe. They take it seriously, but they have no accountability, zero. There is a whole group of us that know in great detail this subject, a lot of which has not been reported to Congress because of security issues. So what's important about that is they're saying, no, actually, we do take it seriously. We have researched this in depth. We have information that has not been shared with Congress, let alone the public, but we don't want to say anything about it. We want to keep it secret. And so will they have any qualms about hiding things that they know, not telling the truth, not being fully transparent the way that they are required by law to be? No, of course not. This is routine for them. One of the things that you mentioned, Mellon, one of the things that he said should be asked publicly is if any of the reported aerial intrusions were also detected maneuvering through space. Quote, if members can confirm UAP in space, they'll make history and help to eliminate an entire category of potential explanations having to do with atmospheric phenomena and things like Chinese lanterns or civilian drones. So that seemed to me to be something significant to watch for, because as he's saying, if you confirm that these have been seen, in space, not just in the sort of civilian airspace, then you can rule out all of these other things that ultimately had been floated. Because the report that came out, it really was, the media covered it in sort of a disingenuous way to say they ruled out extraterrestrial.
Yeah, it's no, that's not what they said.
They actually ruled out everything else, but you can't rule that out. I mean, it's just impossible ultimately to rule out. So the fact that they ruled out all of the other potential phenomenon was actually very revealing.
Yeah, and the more I see about it, look, I think there's a couple explanations. Obviously, one is extraterrestrial. Let's put that aside. Well, what are the other ones? The other one is that it's foreign. Now, it's possible. I think it's highly unlikely. The idea that China and Russia would be in possession of technology which is almost 50 years outside of the development cycle of U.S. technology seems crazy to me. Another point
especially given what we've seen of technological capabilities recently.
Look, and don't throw hypersonic missiles at me. Look, hypersonic missiles are well within our capability. We just have not developed them as of yet. It's not that we haven't known. A great point that I have heard was that if you look at the SR-71 and other leaps in bounds of flight, their intellectual kind of background was present within the literature. So for example, an atomic bomb was known to be possible before 1945.
Yeah, right.
There is no science that exists, as we know, that could propel an aircraft at the speeds of which many of these UFOs have existed, which would mean that, the professors in physics and all these other people had not even theoretically come up with an explanation on paper for how this would work, as opposed to the actual material engineering that would require this to actually come to fruition. So that's why I don't think it's foreign or Russian or Chinese. Now look, it could be a secret U.S. air program. Now the report says that they've ruled out that it's a secret U.S. government program.
Yeah.
But it's the U.S. government who's saying that, so I don't know.
Right.
On that front, again, I just don't look, it is true the SR-71 was a secret bird. I forget exactly what the spy plane, the U-2 spy plane, whatever crashed over the Soviet Union in the 1960s that Francis Gary Powers was flying. Those were certainly major secret developments that were big leaps forward in technology. But again, they existed within the realm of possibility. It was more that engineering such a feat seemed astronomically expensive and very difficult. Here, we don't even know what type of engineering they were talking about.
Observed and what has been publicly released defies physics as we understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think your point is really important, which is that previously, like, the physics could explain how you would get to this point. Yeah. It was theoretically possible. They just hadn't figured out the materials and the engineering. And so that was the piece that they had to put together. But, like, the physics of it made some basic sense. Whereas here, we don't have that, at least not to our knowledge. So listen, I have no idea, but I don't trust anything any of these people say. And obviously they're perfectly comfortable lying and covering up and, keeping their secrets within the deep state community. They've done that in a number of documented instances. So the fact that they're having these internal debates right now about, are we going to tell them what we're supposed to tell them or not, is very revealing.
One last thing I want to say, because I hear this all the time. This is just a distraction. This is a distraction. This is for Space Force funding. Listen, read these reports and talk to any of these people involved. I'm going to be talking to Jeremy Corbell later. They had to get dragged kicking and screaming to the point where we could even get a smidge of information out of them. They don't want any of this out there. They want all of this in the secret. And by the way, as I've said before, if this was all a ploy for funding, then why would they do it at a time whenever there's never been more money for the military-industrial complex in modern history?
Biden's like, give me $40 billion.
Yeah,
and
they're like, no,
how
here's
about
100.
more? Yeah.
So anyway, I think if you know anything about defense budgeting, which I actually have spent way too much time studying, then you would know that they would have done this back in the 2010s during the sequestration period whenever they actually needed money and they were firing a lot of people. Anyway, so that's a long way of saying that the distraction argument is very stupid from a variety of Washington reasons. And also, if you just know anything about how the story has tracked, it's the people inside the programs themselves who have been like, man, this shit is crazy, and have been coming out talking about it. Commander David Fravor, Ryan Graves, other people like that, who have made it known that what they saw was real, or at least it was to them, that is documented within the US military, and have forced the way for the last probably 20 years in order to get it to the point where somebody like me can even talk about it, and that you get to now hear your representatives and have some analysis of
just
in
dismissed
Congress.
as crazy.
Oh, well, they're still dismissed as crazy, but we'll get there. We remember.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.